find something new.
Dan Young and I recently had a conversation with Xin Yao, reflecting on our work together. Xin is an independent consultant working at the intersection of domain-driven design, sociotechnical architecture, and organizational learning. Formerly a chief architect at Danske Bank, she brings 20 years of experience from coding to leading complex change programs. She works with cross-functional teams to evolve software and human systems through collaborative discovery, modeling, and reflective conversations. Xin is deeply committed to collective reasoning and conversational leadership. She speaks at international conferences on these topics and shares ways to bring about design for a better world. The conversation that Xin, Dan, and I had centered on these questions. When and how did we meet? What have we worked on together? What were the whats that found their way in our work together? And what difference has that made for each of us? We hope you find that listening to this reflection conversation among the three of us is helpful to furthering your practice in working with groups. Enjoy.
Yeah. When and how did we meet? Do we remember?
I
So
do.
if I remember correctly, it's 2022, right?
Mhm.
It's 2022 backstage
Yeah.
The
at
green room.
DDG Europe in
Yeah.
the green room.
Yeah.
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 And so context would be that the two of you have just, finished delivering a keynote experience with three other amazing people. And it's something about the architecture practice. And I think it's the first time I've ever seen this done. Like within 1 hour, you guys and with Diana and Andrew,
Yeah.
and I remember there's a
Gayatri.
Gayatri, yes.
Mhm.
And so basically within 1 hour, you succeeded in engaging a big theater, like 700, 800 people.
Yeah,
Like I
something
remembered, I remembered talking to the three guys sitting beside me. Having small group conversations, and then trying to tell. I think it's Mentimeter you used. So basically, expressing my opinions about architecture as a practice. And then watching you, I think, Mike, you run up the stage and then interviewed some people as well. And at that time, I was basically flabbergasted because, being a facilitator, was just like, what? I mean, that's approaching the end of the game. And it was just like, okay, the climax hasn't reached yet. We haven't reached the climax yet. It's just getting better. And it hasn't, because even after that interview, I think or was it before? I don't remember. But then
It's okay.
all the 700 people's input was kind of like already statistically, without the help of AI, being like synthesized into a kind of a quantitative analysis, and then the three experts, you can say, with you, that basically give their own takes on what the quantitative result meant to them, and how they see it. My experience was just like, in how many different ways have I been engaged in this experience? 15 minutes, right? I talked to the guys beside me. I put in my comment and my opinions on Mentimeter. I listened to how the others have been in a conversation interview with Mike, and I saw the quantitative result. So it's everything super turbo fast within 1 hour. And that totally changed my perception about how group experience of a keynote can be designed. So so that was like a shock therapy in a beautiful way for me to say, okay, it's not something that you imagined. It just happened in front of everybody's eyes. Yeah, that was kind of like my first encounter with you. Nothing short of dramatic, and that's why I ran into the green room, and then I don't know. I think then I met you first, and I would just start babbling about my.
Well, we'd come in to sort of pick up our kit or like drop the camera off or whatever, and
Right.
you were there. But it was, I mean, your gift to us at that moment. I mean, there were so many people there. we got a sense of their appreciation of the morning's event, but
Mm-hmm.
your gift was to voice it so clearly in
Yes.
that direct way to us. And then when we spoke to you again on online afterwards, and you've touched on it here. I've just gone and looked this up in my notes because I wrote this down when you said um, uh, you were entertained, activated, informed all at the same
Yeah.
time by that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this
Indeed, I was. And
multi-dimensional experience, which and there was a lot that was captured in what you were saying to us that wasn't obviously a lot of what we did was intentional, but you were able to fill in the gaps on the unintentional things that had happened in the space that you were in the audience as a result of the choices we'd made, which was great to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember in the green room because it was such a whirl of an experience, and going upstairs was only something that I decided and got permission to do maybe 5 or 10 minutes before it started. That it was the first thing that Dan and I had done in person together, right, and at that scale. And so, like Dan was sharing, just what you were able to share with us almost immediately from the experience in a quiet corner of, right, a big venue with loads of people moving around, that we could just take it in and focus, right? And almost like it was sort of meant to be, right? Because I think you were coming to the green room because you were getting ready to talk. So kudos to Annika and the team to create the schedule that way, right, for us. So yeah, I remember it
yeah,
fondly. Yeah.
yes. So at hindsight, I think it was also impressive in a way. It was a massive experimentation.
Hmm.
Just think about how many media you have blended, basically
Hmm.
the digital, the physical, and how you basically engage the whole geographical space, different levels and floors,
Hmm.
and so yeah, and so I guess you also had a lot of uncertainty. I mean, how would this work out? But you
Hmm.
did it anyway, and with three other people, and you got the permission probably also from Matthias and from the
Oh,
organizer
for sure.
team, and so that was yeah. So in that way, it's also I think it's gonna be a lasting inspiration for a lot of us who are considering doing bold moves or trying things in with strangers with a group
Mm.
that you
Hmm.
don't know very well.
Hmm.
So for me, that is I would forever consider that kind of like an example for, let's do it, right? We don't know, but
Yeah.
we'll do it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well,
But really,
Dan.
your enthusiasm for engaging people in this way at that sort of scale, particularly in a conference context, is quite countercultural. And I think this is what we have noticed in suggesting these ideas often to other conferences or to talk to other speakers about it. Is there's a tension in conference culture between this way of working with people where we're on the stage, but it's not about us because the people in the room are the content.
Mhm.
And well, what's the takeaway? You're the takeaway. Your experience is the takeaway. So like that is still quite rare, and it remains rare, I think, because not many people think like you, Jin, which is like actually I would if I heard that was happening at a conference, it would make me want to go there. And I think often for organizers and speakers and an audience, people haven't quite had the flavor.
Hmm.
They haven't had enough taste of it yet to know that that's where everybody wants to go at once.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think that awareness will grow organically. And I mean, I think you also are a big fan of Peter Block, and
Hmm.
I'm a firm believer in, relationship is the delivery medium of anything we want to accomplish,
Hmm.
and creating that relatedness between a participant to the content in such a way. I mean, maybe people don't reflect on it, but that is a very, very different way of making something stick. I still remember the feelings of answering some of the questions, like uh, this process, this architecture process. Now we go into the content. How would it not end in chaos, right? Like everybody is involved and so forth. So the content itself also lends itself to ambiguity, and that's a perfect blend of the format you have chosen. And so I think people. I guess, like everything else in this space, it's gonna grow organically, maybe by leaps and bounds, but not like a steady mathematical growth like we want to see. But yeah, I think at a certain point, more people would get on board of this sort of growing relatedness, to use your own word.
I mean, that is that mix, right? Because no matter the scale or size, right, that can be very different. Because as Dan was saying, from a conference culture perspective, right, can be counterintuitive and different, right, from what's expected. And even when it comes to, right, smaller team meetings or initiatives, that kind of orientation to how you're going to connect on the content or make decisions, right, is very different, right, from what a number of modes are. And people have preferences. And so it's sort of how does some of those preferences organically shift or stay where they are? Can
Yeah.
be some of the questions
I
along
mean,
those
this might,
lines. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Sorry, just want to add one thing from my personal experience. I've since then, even after being part of that experience, I've delivered numerous keynotes and talks, and not even once have I actually implemented my dream of doing something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And in retrospect, I think that is at least my perception of a lack. If you want to grow some organic things, the temperature needs to be there, the soil and the light and the humidity, and I think in that keynote everything just checked out. I mean, I'm referring to the keynote you did. And so in some of the other things I did, some of those ingredients were missing, which made me make a different choice. But another part is also I was not courageous enough to say, I'm just gonna do a massive experimentation on the delivery format. I basically sort of prioritized the content over the connection in a way and went for the safe route. So I'm still dreaming. I'm still dreaming one day I would be able to, just copycat a little bit of that vibe. And I wonder, I'm still having this wide-eyed wonder how that would work out that day.
But what maybe Jin, the answer is to go and to somehow get accepted to do a keynote in a domain where you know nothing, then maybe that would be the impetus you need to sort of to let go of the identity of being the expert in the, because it's funny that we went to a DDD conference. I mean, I know what DDD stands for, but I couldn't explain to anyone really what it is. I mean, I've worked in the technology field for a long time, and I could probably have a go at trying to describe it, but like within a minute, anyone would be able to tell that I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, we went and ran a keynote with these industry experts on a stage, and somehow we were almost out of necessity had to make it about, well, what do you think? Because I can't say anything about it. So really, there's a sort of there's a freedom in knowing nothing about the topic, and I think it would have held us back if we had been experts in it. We wouldn't have actually been able to do what we did.
Right. A need to share expertise, right? And
Yeah,
in a
we
lot
would have
of
designed
ways,
something completely different. If we had been on the level of Andrew and Gayatri and Diana, we
sure.
would have done something.
Well, and what's interesting, and Jin, you sort of named this, and right, some of the choices you're making, which is kind of a good segue too, that we'll segue in a second. But staying with this, the that curiosity around feedback, right? Something is fully formed enough, and there's a there there, right? So like Andrew, for example, it was about the advice process. That was a thing that he was thinking about and writing about and was getting a lot of attention, but he didn't know quite what it was or where it was going. And so in the process of figuring it out, it was sort of like, well, this is actually an opportunity to better understand where it could go or where it might not be well suited, or the things to be aware of and how it'll feel or what people will think about it as it makes its way into the world. Right. So now we're, 3 years later, his book's out, he's navigating. Actually, we'll chat with him in a few weeks' time, I think, as well. And it was the right time for him to want to reflect on that and get that mass input because he was curious about that and open to it. And that is fundamentally it, right? Being open to these different things and these choices and knowing why you're making them for given intentions around experience, choices, sharing expertise, learning from each other, making decisions, better understanding, dealing with risk, who knows? On those lines, when you think of what we've worked on together, how do some of these things kind of weave in? What was the thing we worked on together? How did we work together?
Yeah, how did we work together? I think you kind of were my rescue crew and my coach at the same time during one of my sort of very tough client assignments. I'm kind of this self-proclaimed complexity wrangler.
Hmm.
And then when I'm really in these complex space with a lot of politics and with people who say, "Oh, we really want a collaborative way of working," and then when it comes to some really high stake events, then you feel that, oh, not really, because then somebody still wants to decide. So I was in that space, and you were basically my coaches. I felt at that time, I think I shared in a very vulnerable way that I really felt very alone, and I don't know sometimes how to navigate this. So I actually asked you if I didn't know if at that time if you were like coaches or not, but you basically I mean, took up my challenge and became my coaches. And that has meant everything for me. That was a very, so I was kind of basically a change practitioner, or the person who is actually the lead architect leading a kind of a change process. In the middle, a lot of interpersonal stuff basically took overhand and got really, I really need to factor these things into the group experience, which is essentially an architecture exercise in the context of mergers and acquisitions to make things even more complex. And so that experience, so I think you played so many roles for me. As a consultant, I was alone. I was kind of like so you provided a supervisory space for me, not only coaching, but also sort of consulting backstage with me. And you're like a teammate with me as well, sparing, tossing ideas. Obviously, you're my friends as well, and inspire us. So I remember these coaching sessions. They sort of is a mixture between me asking questions and you openly share your perspectives. But I never experienced once that you just gave me a solution. And once in a while, I could even be like having this. It's like if you read Socrates, some people are really annoyed by Socrates always asking questions back, right? It's just like, okay, I'm asking you, what would you do? But then what I received from the two of you is actually more questions of inquiry. I never felt that I was like being imposed expert solutions, even though I know you were the experts in group experiences, and you probably had your opinions as well about those things. How would you go about doing it? But the way you coached me was really through really thoughtful questions and inquiries. I remember once, in one of those sessions, I felt really frustrated um, about some leadership's wish to basically take over the group experience. And then, so instead of just taking my side, and you did actually compliment me for my courage, but one of the questions you challenged me to do is actually really think about what does the group need? What does the group need from you right now? And that has meant, it took me out of my little self-pitying, also a little bit shameful feeling of, oh, I'm not doing this well, and that's why they want to take over, and so forth. But basically, to make it not about me. How can I be of better service? And you did that for me in your own way. And I can give another example. In that moment, it was a very tense moment. There was a time difference, but I think, Mike, you were like the closest to me because
we
it was
were in the
like
same
in the
time
US
zone.
time zone.
Yeah.
And since I was totally absorbed, I wasn't sleeping and I was like very stressed. And then this evening, you sent me not coaching notes, not anything else. Well, also some encouraging comments, but a picture of you stargazing, the night sky. And that totally took me out of my, my contact was just like, okay, uh, I just thought, okay, there is a world much larger than than my own struggle and than this suffering I'm experiencing. And so I don't know if that's done, with any kind of a larger intention, but that sort of put me in a more restful state. And I came to think, rest is basically needed in you reminded me that I need to take a break. I need to look at the night sky. And so this rest is kind of like a balance between what I want to do and how I want to be. And how I want to be is to, in all that stress, to be able to take a break and look at the night sky and imagine all the mystery is far more it's far more beautiful than than these struggles I'm going through personally. I don't know. It's just it's a very, very beautiful way of going through that together. Yeah, so that's coaching. And what you didn't know is that all the keynotes and all the talks, basically every single one, I used your 16 design aspects. So in the beginning, I had to put a Miro board and I have to, pick one question, all those prompts and the basic environment, the framing, inviting dissent. Those are some of my favorites, growing relatedness and now I feel I don't even have to do it. I have it. It's kind of like show notes. I know all of this. So I can go through a faster progress in my head. So you help that. You frame those 16 design
Amazing.
aspects of intentional group experience design, and you really help me, go through these design processes alone, but feeling that I have a discipline and I have the support from you. It's amazing, right? So these are some of the concrete what's that you have been you have meant to me in my personal journey.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's a great story. I mean, we sort of imagined, well, I guess we couldn't really have imagined that somebody would reach the state that you have to, where it's kind of it's something you feel now. You don't just go and, it's going to look at a PDF that we've made. It's become your way of being when you approach an event. These are the pathways you've developed now in your mind to process the experience of designing something.
Yeah, and I really have you to thank for, and the art of questions, the arc of conversation, and yeah, those are kind of like really, really have stuck with me and become my, go-to techniques in framing these things. So yeah, so that's really wonderful.
That's amazing.
Thanks, Jin.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, incredibly. And yeah, I mean, kind of thinking about like the difference again, segueing again, right? That difference that we've made to each other in a lot of ways started even before we started recording and having this conversation of just recounting, our, now knowing each other for, I guess basically 3 years, right? And our evolutions, right, through that. And, staying connected and talking and being at similar events or just hearing about them or knowing what they're like. And, um, it's both, it's confidence building, right? It's buoying, in a lot of ways, right? It kind of keeps us afloat in challenging moments, like you were saying. Am I doing the right thing? Are we helping, right, in the ways that we can? And knowing, right, some of the unintended, positivity that comes from a moment of, right, sending a picture of, we're all hanging out doing this work together in different time zones and different places, but we're connected because we're communicating with each other and understanding each other, and we're a part of something bigger. And so providing that kind of rest and perspective, right, on what it is that we're doing. It doesn't make what you're going through unimportant at all. It's just a part of that fabric, right? And yeah, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what you the sort of the scenario the story you've reminded us of is it definitely it stretched me for sure. The being in that role for you, sort of providing that support, but also what I remember is the just how clear it was to me that the work of doing the gatherings and designing, which was your consulting project at the time, was inseparable from your relationship to the client. Like it was the relationship between the client and you as practitioner was intertangled
Hmm.
with your choices and what you could and couldn't do and your opportunities, but your constraints were all part of the same package. So that I remember that you stand and look at it from that angle and you have that conversation, and we come back over here and then it's it becomes part of that 16 design aspects conversation. So
Hmm.
that's what I took from it all.
Yeah.
Made a big difference to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
The relations, the relatedness with the client has always been something very, it's both easy and hard for me because everybody can feel my passion and my willingness to do good and to be of help, to be of service. But then, in a way, I also have a very strong conviction about what I feel is the right way, like the collaborative way of working. Also the bottom up surfacing of meaning and like engaging people. So when I see a different orientation, the manifestation of that, it's very hard for me to work with my judgment. And in that moment, I could lose my relatedness to the client. And I shared some of this in a recent OD podcast. And that is still something I know it's gonna be something I'm gonna work with for a very long time. And I think it's just being where we are as a change practitioners and people who want to make the world a better place through relatedness. It's There's also a dance between what we really, really wholeheartedly believe in, our values, and when the world doesn't manifest these values, and how do we work with our feeling of disappointment and sustaining that compassion for ourselves and for the world, not like in a condescending way, but in a truly compassionate way.
Mhm.
And that is one of the learning that I have taken from that, consulting experience. At that time, I felt carried by you. I mean, the questions that you, like these, what does the group need, and those things. I believe you really helped me do the right thing despite my judgment,
Mm.
right? Despite my urge to be that single hero going against the stream. And
Mhm.
that wouldn't have helped anyway. But
Mhm.
I went there, I showed up, and I felt I unified the group, including the leaders who actually eventually backed off from taking over,
Mhm.
even though they are saying, well, we didn't get what we wanted eventually. But the
Mhm.
group was unified. And so at hindsight, I also feel that had I had more a natural, inflow of this compassion, had this been my, my natural mode of going
Mm.
about things, things could have worked out in a different way, but then why would I want it? This has been a valuable learning lesson.
Mhm.
Like in a similar situation, I think it would be more intuitive for me to let that compassion come in and work the wonder. But at that time, I let my value orientation, my idealism, my belief in the right or wrong, black and
Mhm.
white in a way, take over a little bit. And that's definitely, uh, um, so the client could definitely feel it. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel it's so easy to subscribe to this relatedness, but so difficult to do,
Mm.
especially for people who have a very strong value
Yeah. So it
orientation.
sounds like that experience was a catalyst, and it's created a lot of exploration around what does that mean for you as a consultant, as a practitioner, and bringing people together. And you're on the path. I want to encourage you to to stay on it. You're onto something very powerful for you and the people you're gonna, encounter and work with and bring along. I'm curious, what's something you would encourage Dan and I to continue to do or explore from your perspective, based on what you know, what we're up to right now, and those kinds of
Mm.
things.
I feel that so on some level we the all the three of us kind of in this in between state. um, something it's like something we have understood to be important maybe makes not as much sense as before, and then the new
Mm.
catalyzed and whatever new recognition hasn't arrived uh, with clarity yet.
Mm-hmm.
So with our, with my consulting career,
Mm-hmm.
with the paid and unpaid
Mm-hmm.
uh, work,
Mm-hmm.
and with, um, the need to basically be financially comfortable or
Mm-hmm.
safe, and to still believe in the organically growing change,
Mm.
and be patient, because organically growing means you. I mean, it's spring, and we're reminded of the impermanence of everything.
Right.
Also, growth. If I plant something, I have to wait a few months for it to grow. And in
Mm-hmm.
the autumn, it might become sort of intertwined and not as
Mm-hmm.
beautiful as I wish. But that's growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel in this in between state. All the three of us are going through this space,
Mm-hmm.
and it's challenging, also given the larger political and economic context.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that I will keep in this reflective space. I will be able to see myself, so reflecting myself
Mm-hmm.
in you, or vice versa, like
Mm-hmm.
mirrors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that interaction, and I hope we would keep doing this. and in one way or another. And it's really incredibly nourishing for me to keep this in this relatedness with the two of you.
Oh, thanks so much. And
Thank you, Jin.
yeah,
It's been a
ditto to
pleasure
that.
to chat to you today. Yeah. Hearing your words is very, very touching, and it's been wonderful to reconnect. It's been too long. So thank you.
We'll keep them
Yes.
coming for sure.
Awesome.